It came in. Let's open it up so you can see what the heck is inside the box, even though I'm pretty sure I told you in the last video. So, yeah, you already know what it is. So I understand by judging by the looks of this, I probably look like I'm going to go shoot an NFL game. I'm not, just another wedding, but I've been super curious because it's obviously a global shutter, and during a Catholic ceremony, so you can't put your tripod very close. So we got this for the B camera. This is the 100 to 400. It extends quite a bit, and it's honestly much lighter than I was expecting it to be. But let's be honest, this is the real reason why we're all here. This is the one I'm the most excited about. This is the A9 III with its global shutter, absurd burst rate of 120 photos in a second. That's nuts. I know this is way later than like all the other reviews, but that's not why I'm doing this. I genuinely want to see what a global shutter looks like and how that works in like a wedding environment. So tomorrow we're going to be using this guy, and today we'll just kind of play around with it, see what kind of first impressions I have and whatnot. So yeah, let's get it all set up, and then we'll go take some photos and maybe some random shots. I'll probably use the 100 to 400 since it's being rented. Like, why not? All right, I just finished setting it up, and this speed, just listen to it. That's 100 photos. Just like that. I'll probably never, actually not even probably, I'll never use that feature. I'm gonna try and figure out how to use it, like if I find a bird or something, but as far as right now, I have zero use for that feature. So, anyways, we're gonna go out just to try and take some photos real quick, and I'll see what the video looks like. I'll pop an ND filter on here real quick, and then yeah, we'll get some video. Don't worry.
Okay, getting ready to pack this guy up and send it back because it's my last day with it. And let me give you some quick thoughts before we look at some photos and videos and the image quality and everything of this camera. First things first, ergonomics are actually very welcomed. There's no more like hard edges on this side where you're gripping the camera. It just kind of falls off a lot more smooth, and it's just more comfortable to hold. It feels like the shutter is a little bit easier to press as well. It's just a lot ergonomically more comfortable. I still wish they were a little bit taller, but obviously you can buy a hand grip for that, which is probably what they want you to do. As far as some cons go, I would have to say that the dials on the left feel a little unnecessary. Obviously, I'm not a sports shooter, so maybe you might feel differently. I just feel like this top drive mode dial is it's a little much. I feel like you can easily just press the FN button and then scroll over to drive modes and change it. Especially with this camera because it has the burst mode here at C5, which is very, very conveniently placed. I feel like it's just easier to get to, and you can just place this on medium or high, and when you need that extreme burst, you can easily just push and hold C5 while you're shooting. I just feel like this is a waste of space. And as far as that goes, I mean, genuinely, you're dealing with another Sony body, and it feels great, works great. Ergonomic wise, feels better than the last generation, which I feel like they always improve on. And other than that, yeah, that's all I have to say about the body.
So I had to return the camera, so let's go ahead and wrap this video up and just talk about a few more things that I think are kind of important. Point number one, I didn't notice any different colors or shifting of colors. S-Log3 still looks like S-Log3. I noticed my A7R5 has a little bit more magenta in it than the A9 III. Don't know what that's about. Couldn't be the lens because I used that same lens on all of my weddings, so I don't know. It wasn't very off, but it was enough to slightly notice when I go to color grade. There's a little bit more magenta in skin tones and stuff on my A7R5 than there is on the A9 III. Didn't have to change really anything, just something to kind of note. Secondly, I didn't really notice any loss in dynamic range. Again, every day I shot with this camera was cloudy, so it was kind of hard to gauge like how it looks in direct sunlight. But again, it's still rated very similar to the A7R5. So when I'm shooting with those side by side, I don't really notice anything. The only thing to really note is that your starting base ISO is at 2000. So my 2 to 5 ND filter wasn't like strong enough. So usually that's at 5 and I'm shooting around like f4, which doesn't bother me, but just something to note. If you do look at picking up this camera, pick up a stronger ND filter. Everything I have stops at like 5 because I don't know. To me, I don't really need anything from the way that I shoot past that, but just something to note. Thirdly, you don't get flickering LEDs, and this was probably one of my favorite little things. It's very little and subtle, but if you're a wedding videographer or photographer for that matter, you know how annoying it is to try and adjust and shoot around just cheap LEDs that flicker in your footage or in your photos. So you're trying to like flash a bunch or like try to catch the right like shutter speed or shutter angle to where the lights won't flicker. It's just an annoying thing to like look out for. And when you shoot weddings, like you run into that quite a bit. And with this camera, I just didn't have to worry about that. And that was like really nice just to like not have to think about. One thing to note, when I tried to do like photos with the 100 to 400 lens, for some reason there was like some hunting going on. I was in like autofocus with bird priority. I tried taking photos of birds. It seemed to hunt quite a bit. And the more I keep looking at the photos, I don't think it was the camera's fault. I think it's more of a lens issue. And I say that because when I put on my 28 to 70, that didn't happen. It would lock on immediately, would not let go. It never hunted. So I think that's more of a lens problem, but that's for another video. Honestly, this camera is really, really nice. The ergonomics feel much better than the A7R5, but not really different enough for that to be like a really big talking point. If you haven't used dynamic active stabilization, it's nice that they finally have it in like a pro body, and it's so nice. Especially if you're like me and you're very handheld and run and gun, and sometimes you just don't have the best area to kind of make sure you can have a stable shot. This can really save you in a pinch, especially with any Sony lens. For some reason, it works better with native lenses, but it does crop in 1.3 times into your image. So if that's like a problem for you, you can get a wider lens. There's the 20 to 70 or anything like a 16 to 35. And so when you punch in on a 16 to 35, it kind of leaves you roughly around like a 20 millimeter. So you're still wide enough, but it just really smooths out an image. It looks great. It doesn't look robotic or like jittery. You don't get wobbles. It was just really pleasant to use this camera. And I would definitely pick one up if you're in the market for something global sensor wise, because price wise, I think your next best bet is something like a Komodo X. And as great as that camera is, don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's just expensive, super 35, and then you're locked into kind of RF lenses. So I don't know. To me, that's not an ecosystem I want to invest in. But if you're already in the Sony lineup and that's something that has really caught your eye, I would give this a look. I'm just saying it's worked great. Shutter wise, I mean, like it is a monster. Like for photos, it just bursting through a lot of the like volleyball shots that you've seen. Those are photos. Those aren't video. Those aren't video clips. Like it's crazy to think you can take 120 photos in a single second. and you just get to pick whichever frame you like the most, or if you like all of them, make it into like a little reel or whatever you want to do with 120 photos in a second. The fact that it's an option, and I didn't shoot with the fastest SD card, and my SD card still kept up because I think it's 24 megapixels if I'm correct. It just, wow, it just gets the job done. The buffer didn't really fill up. When it did, it would still slow down to roughly around like, I would say like 5 frames a second, sometimes 10. So you do kind of have to be careful about that. But if you have a fast enough card, you won't run out the buffer. Like, it's crazy how fast this camera like can run. And another thing to note that I'm thinking about it is it does run hot. So while you're doing video like I did all day for a wedding, right around, I would say the 6 hour mark is when I really noticed like the camera is pretty dang hot. Like, it has been running for, I mean, 6 hours straight. So obviously I'm stopping and starting in between moments and stuff like that. But it got pretty hot. Now, I never saw an overheat warning or anything of the sort. The shutoff thing was set to high, and so that's also something to think about. But I'm in Florida. It's hot here. That day was, I don't know, right around like 68 degrees. So it wasn't crazy hot or anything like that, but it did get pretty hot. So it would probably be more of a concern if you're shooting in like 80 degrees, 90-degree weather. Maybe it might get hotter faster. Maybe you might see the like overheat warning, but I never had like an overheating issue. From when moving from place to place, I would turn it off, and it seemed to cool down very quickly. So take that how you will. I loved it. It was great to use. The dynamic active was a great feature to have in a pro body. The speed I would never really use photo wise, but it was just nice to not have the flickering lights and different things like that. The 2000 ISO I could get used to. The noise pattern isn't bad. It looks just like the A7R5, but without any like internal processing with noise reduction. I have that turned off, but it looks like, comparing the footage, it looks like there's some going on in the A7R5 versus the A9 III doesn't look like it has anything going on. So take that how you want. It looks like more so like you're editing raw footage. And if you've ever done that before, you know noise patterns can easily be cleaned up at base ISOs. And I don't know, when going up, the highest I shot was at 6400 ISO, and it doesn't look bad at all. Cleaned up in like 2 seconds. So that's it for this one. Anyways, hope you guys like this review and all the footage and stuff. I tried to get as much variety as I could. And on that note, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.